Pakistan was forced into the lockdown 3 weeks in March. It was the only way it was going to control the coronavirus from spreading. What we have with us today Mr. Hamza Shafqaat, who is the Deputy Commissioner for Islamabad, to understand what challenges this imposed on the administrations across the country. Hamza, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you very much.
Hamza, tell me, so when the lockdown started, how long did you have before to prepare for the lockdown, and what was your immediate challenge?
The first date of the lockdown was in the mid of the March, and we were already ready with the complete plan, and we had already submitted it to the government.
Okay.
So it was not like a complete surprise for us. We were already prepared for it, and frankly speaking, imposing a lockdown was not a big challenge for us because we've been trained for it. We've been doing it for the past many years. We've been imposing curfews. We've been imposing Section 144s, and we have faced many challenges, especially in Islamabad, with all the dharnas and with all the protests which are carrying on. Our bigger challenge was to control the disease and to quarantine people. We did not have any legal cover for quarantining people, and we were not trained how to deal with those positive patients. But in any case, the immediate challenges for the lockdown were giving away the information properly to every individual. Because in the first few days, we saw that there was no clarity whether which shop was to be opened. For example, in the first day of the lockdown, it was clear that the food shops will not be closed. The restaurants will be closed. So there is a very thin distinction between a food shop, a food outlet, and a restaurant and a hotel. Then shopping malls were to be closed, but cash and carries were to be opened. So there were these challenges of understanding, of comprehension, which we faced in the beginning. Secondly, there was a resistance in the rural areas. People in the rural areas were not acclaimed for a complete lockdown, for staying at their houses. Okay. So it was a challenge for us, and we had to invite army. In just the third day of the lockdown, we requisitioned Pakistan Army and 3 different wings of Pakistan Army. From
saying that you wanted to use the mosque to actually spread the information. So how do you balance the two things out?
No, only the loudspeaker of the mosque.
Okay.
Not actually calling people. Only the loudspeaker of the mosque. It can make announcements, and even now, the entire during the iftari, the sirens are used in the mosques. And every mosque, 1,000 mosques in Islamabad, they have absolute coverage of entire area of Islamabad. Okay. So if we just focus on those 1,000 mosques and their prayer leaders and their loudspeakers, so I think we can reach correct information to the entire population.
Have you started engaging the prayer leaders, the Maulvis and the mosques and the loudspeakers? Have you started working with them?
Yes. I've already started working. Somehow there is an inertia, an old inertia in the mosque that they do not cooperate with the administration as such. There is a huge gap between our communications, but we called their leaders. In Islamabad, I've had extensive communication sessions with the ulamas, the leaders of the religious leaders in Islamabad, and in that I've been able to make some ingress. And I think by and large I've been successful. And if I have to evaluate myself, I think that I'll give myself as 80% of success in this area.
Okay, so it's interesting because you say one of the most difficult challenges for you has been communication for your team, rather than what we most of the time, most of us imagine that the difficulty must have been closing the shops, imposing law and order. So you're saying you've not have faced difficulties in that particular aspect?
Yes, in Islamabad, this is not the problem. Why? Because mostly the population is educated, number one. And number two, the administration has sufficient legal and magisterial powers. Okay. So we can impose anything, we can put people behind bars, and we have been doing it for the past many years. On the other hand, it is not the case with the other administrations in Pakistan.
Okay, so
for example,
sorry, go ahead, carry on.
Yes, for example, if I was in Chakwal or if I was in Jhelum, it would have been impossible for me to get my lockdown order imposed, because there the police is not legally under the administration. It is an independent body. Okay. In Islamabad, the district police take some ingress, and I think by and large I've been successful. And if I have to evaluate myself, I think that I'll give myself as 80% of success in this area.
Okay, so it's interesting because you say one of the most difficult challenges for you has been communication for your team, rather than what we most of the time most of us imagine that the difficulty must have been closing the shops, imposing law and order. So you're saying you've not have faced difficulties in that particular aspect.
Yes, in Islamabad, this is not the problem. Why? Because mostly the population is educated, number one. And number two, the administration has sufficient legal and magisterial powers.
Okay.
So we can impose anything, we can put people behind bars, and we have been doing it for the past many years. On the other hand, it is not the case with the other administrations in Pakistan.
Okay, so
for example...
Sorry, go ahead, carry on.
Yes. For example, if I was in Chakwal or if I was in Jhelum, it would have been impossible for me to get my lockdown order imposed, because there the police is not legally under the administration. It is an independent body. Okay. In Islamabad, the district police reports to the district magistrate, which is the deputy commissioner himself. Okay. So therefore, we have sufficient legal powers that we can impose penalties. So in Islamabad, that is not the problem.
Okay, very interesting. So in Islamabad, tell me, if you split out Islamabad, which group of people did you face the most resistance from, and how did you work with that resistance?
The first resistance was obviously from the mosques. They refused to abide by the order of 144, and even now they are not abiding by the lockdown orders. They are continuing with their prayers, but we have been successful in imposition and implementation of the standard operating procedures. So now, if you visit any of the major mosques in Islamabad, you will see that people are standing at a distance of at least 4 or 5 feet. There are no carpets, no rugs in the mosques. They are being properly disinfected, and people are bringing their own mats, their own jainamas, their own caps, or their own cloth or whatever to place it on the area of the sajda.
Right.
So, but the initial resistance was from the ulama for the lockdown. Okay. Second, because of I think in Islamabad the traders, they did not resist in the beginning. But now, after a lapse of almost 2 months, now I think it's about time that they are, really challenging the writ of the state. I often see that the barbers were ordered to close, but they started opening their shops. The garment shop, they started opening their shops. The book shops, even the computer shops, mobile shops. This is what
I was going to ask you. You personally, how do you see the lockdown continuing? Do you think we're going to move towards a smart lockdown, or the government is going to continue trying to impose its writ on the state, on the people?
No. It is impossible. We cannot continue the lockdown after 9th May. Okay. We will have to open up some of the shops at some of the timings or on some of the days with some kind of an SOP. We cannot keep them locked down. I think that if we continue after 9th May, people will start protesting.
Why 9th May? Why do you have 9th of May in your mind?
Because 9th May, because it will be the first 10 days of the Ramzan Ashra. And in the second Ashra of the Ramzan, people have to buy stuff. Okay. And the traders, they have to sell their stuff. Okay. Because they've been accumulating their products for the last so many months. So if we don't allow them to, open up their shops, they'll come on the streets.
Okay, so this seems a very a rational argument that you're making. How do you counter the argument that people are saying that you are going to create, and for example, we're seeing a lot of conferences by doctors happening who are saying that we are going to have a massive spike in deaths if we allow people to keep coming on the streets in the way that they've started coming out on the streets. How do you counter that?
I'm telling you, even today, now that the lockdown is very much opened up in Islamabad, the entire Federal Secretariat is working. We have more than 51 exemptions given to different kinds of shops. The property offices are open, the construction activity is going on, the industries are open. And that is why today we had 31 cases. Normally, we only had 5 to 6 cases. Our maximum number of cases in one day was 10. But just today we had 31 cases. Right. So this means that the relaxation in the lockdown is resulting in more cases.
Okay.
But you see, people will come on the streets. But on the other hand, if I see from the medical point of view, obviously if we open up, more people will die. And
Have
that
you
is
got any
now,
estimates if the lockdown starts falling apart the way it has started to fall apart? Do you have any estimates as to how many we might see spikes in cases or deaths?
yes, the number of deaths in Islamabad are 1%. So if we have 300 patients, we have 3 deaths. That is already we have 3 deaths in Islamabad, and in fact, just today we had a 4th death as well. So the ratio of deaths in Islamabad is 1.4%.
Okay.
And initially, with the strict lockdown, our daily growth in the positive cases was around 7 to 8 cases per day.
Okay.
But now, because of the relaxation of the lockdown, it is going up to 20 to 30 cases per day, which means that in just one more month, we will have 1,500 cases.
Okay.
So if there are 1,500 cases, we will have, 16 or 17 or maybe 20 deaths. 20 deaths, and almost 30 to 40 people will be on ventilators and on critical or they'll be needing critical care.
Right.
So this means if we don't carry on with the strict lockdown, we will be seeing I think in Islamabad I'll be seeing 20 to 30 deaths in the next 2 weeks.
Okay, wow.
Which is a huge number, because otherwise on daily basis in the last 2 years data, the daily deaths in Islamabad are 8 to 9.
Okay, wow.
Which are the normal deaths. They are 8 to 9, maximum 10 deaths per day in Islamabad, which are being registered by us.
Right.
So if this number increases to 20 per day,
Right.
then we'll not be able to handle it, because we don't have sufficient people who can dig graves.
What are
We
the
don't have sufficient.
thinking then? Because on the one hand, your understanding, it seems, that people will come onto the streets, people need their livelihoods, people are not going to stop listening now. And we're seeing it happening all over the world. It's not just Pakistan. You've seen that there's strikes and protests all over the US capital, US cities, right? From one state to the other 52 states. We're seeing strikes of people coming out and saying we need to go back to work, we need to have our incomes. And yet, on the other hand, you're predicting yourself that you may see double the rates of death per day than you usually see. So as an administration person, how do you intend to deal with this?
We have another plan, and that is that we need to enforce SOPs. We need to make mask compulsory for entire population of Islamabad.
Okay.
KP has already done this.
Okay.
We need to do this. Secondly, we need to enhance our testing capacity. Number 2, if we take more tests, we'll be in a better position to ascertain whether which areas are our epicenters. Third is we need to hire 1,000 volunteers in Islamabad who will help us in the imposition of home quarantining and making sure that the people who are being quarantined at their homes do not come out.
Why do you think volunteers? Why not the police or the army? I mean, people have been talking about the Tiger Force.
Already they are exhausted. We are already running 14 quarantines. Already we have to monitor every mosque. Already we have to monitor already we have 245 patients who are quarantined at their homes.
Okay.
And at every home we have to deploy 2 people, one at night and one in the morning. So our force is already exhausted. We don't have more people.
Right.
So government has to invest more in it. If they want to impose a smarter lockdown, they have to invest. So if they let us hire volunteers, 1,000 volunteers, and if they give away free masks to the people, and there are 22 lakh people in
Do you have enough
Islamabad.
masks available to give out?
Yes, now they are available. But their cost is more. Initially they were available for 7 rupees, but now they are available for 30 rupees.
Okay.
Because there is shortage, and if there is shortage, demand is more. We cannot control the prices in that scenario.
Are you buying them from the free market like everybody else, or are you going to the wholesale?
No.
Where are you buying them from?
No, we are going to the wholesale market. We are going directly to the factories. We're going directly to the factories.
Okay.
And we are getting it on good price, which is a reasonable price. But obviously, if we have to give it to every person in Islamabad, that is an impossible task.
Right.
So I was telling you, in order to impose a smarter lockdown, we will also have to impose restriction on movement of older people.
Okay.
The 4 deaths in Islamabad, 3 of them are above 60 years of age.
Okay.
So we have to impose restriction on people who are more than 60 years, or maybe even 55. If we are able to enforce that, I think we can carry on with this kind of smarter lockdown.
So there's no question that you and your team are working extremely long hours these days. How are you ensuring the safety of yourself and your own team?
My team is directly on the front line. Already 2 of my doctors, 2 of my drivers, and 2 of our staff who were working on the quarantine facilities. 2 of the staff who were working on the quarantine are tested positive now.
Okay.
So it is a challenge, but this is what we are being paid for. We understand our problems. No, we can't make excuses. Now is the time that the country needs us.
Yeah.
Now is the time that the spirit of public service, which has been inculcated in us in the past so many years, we have to come up to the challenge.
Right.
The maximum I can do is we've spent a lot of money. We've spent 12 lakh rupees for buying of protection equipment from the private sector, because there were not enough equipment with the NDMA and with the ministry. So we've ensured that such kind of protection equipment is given to my staff, and by and large, yes, I'm also training my staff. All of my staff is trained by NIH. Right. My doctors are trained. Even my drivers are trained trained on how to deal in this situation. I think inshallah we'll be able to manage it for 45 days, and after that, I'm hopeful that Allah Ta'ala will be kind and somehow the virus will die.
No, thank you, Hamza, for addressing all these corona issues. I want to ask you one general question as well. Before Islamabad and the current situation that you're facing in Islamabad, what has been your most tough assignment before this? I mean, is there any comparison to being in a situation before this?
No.
Or have they all been in Islamabad, your tough assignments?
I've been working in Sindh. My first assignments were in Sindh, and I was posted in the interior areas. There were issues of law and order and of crime, but the challenge which we are facing right now, we've our entire civil service, even our seniors, they've never faced it ever.
Right.
And this is I think the world has not seen such a challenge in the last 15 years.
Yes.
And we are trying our best. We're giving our whatever we have. We are going to put it in and try our best to control.
You're also reaching out a lot, I've noticed. You're very popular on Twitter. You're very active on Twitter. You're probably one of the rare civil servants who uses Twitter very frequently. How did you end up using Twitter, and what do you use it for generally? I mean, is it helping you under this current crisis?
Yes, it is. Basically, Twitter is very good for giving away accurate information, number one. And secondly, it gives you back accurate feedback. People who come to my office, 90% of the times, they are telling me good things.
Right.
My subordinates, they are always giving me rosy pictures that, sir, everything is going perfectly fine and nothing will happen. Right. Twitter is one thing where I get abused almost on a daily basis. So I know what exactly the people are feeling, and what is exactly their sentiment, and how that can be, how I improve upon by the feedback which is given by people on Twitter.
Well, thank you very much for giving us time today, Hamza. I really appreciate it. And God bless you and your team for looking after all of us and the whole of Pakistan state as well.